Kaya Podcast would like to acknowledge that this episode was recorded on Whadjuk land of the Noongar people. We recognise our First Nations people as the traditional custodians of the land, and we pay our respects to the elders past, present and future. Kaya Wanju, hello and welcome to the Kaya Podcast. Like every episode that you have seen, I have some amazing people come into the podcast, and the reason for it is amazing people doing awesome stuff, not just in the indigenous community, but in the community of Australia in itself. And these people, they're constantly inspiring the next generation and inspiring people to do more. And I know I say this for almost every guest that I get on the podcast, as you guys know, but I do truly mean this about this guest. This guest is very special, and it was actually one of the very first people that I wanted to get on. And then I was lucky enough to meet her because I actually modeled this podcast a little bit around what she does. So please welcome Brooke Blurton. Brooke, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
I can't believe the first time I've actually heard that.
Yeah?
Oh, no, did you tell me? No.
I didn't. I was waiting for this to tell you that. So a little bit of Not So PG was actually around this because what you guys talk about, how you and Matt, which is amazing by the way.
Yeah, it's deadly.
Yeah, it was actually one of my resources on. Okay, that's something that's being done. I can do this. Like, this is something that can be done. How'd that kind of come around?
I mean, there's like two different things with like podcasts, because people think that everyone who becomes like a social art whatever can start a podcast, but like not everyone can do it. Like, it is, and as you know, like, it's so much hard work. But it's one of probably my most favourite parts of my job. Yeah. I think because when you find someone to bounce off and to have conversation with who feels like family, the conversations and storytelling becomes like really easy. Yeah,
it's just like flowing, like you just go back and forth because they know what you're thinking at the same time. Eh?
Well, like, exactly. And so Maddie and I met like years ago, and he was probably one of the very first people that I actually told about doing The Bachelorette in 2021. And I don't know why, I just met this bloke and I was like, you're like my brother. Yeah. And I was like, I feel like I can tell you everything. And he and I just like spoke over the year. And I just had a podcast on my mind because I was like, mob are the best at telling stories. And I wanted to elevate other people's stories and other people's voices. But I felt like, I don't know, I probably lacked the confidence used to lack the confidence of feeling like doing it by myself would get a little bit boring. Yeah. So I looked for a co-host, and I found Maddie, like, as in, like, it just all sort of happened. But I now wouldn't turn back the time. Just because, like, we never did it for, like, to get on the charts or, like, to be the top podcast in Australia or anything like that. We actually just did it because there was nothing out there, as you know. Like, there's not a lot of mob-owned podcasts, and it's growing, and it's like, so, like, it's coming, like, it's, more people are doing it, but I'm just like so excited about more mob and people getting involved in the podcast space. Yeah,
and like so that's sort of, and indirectly, inspired more podcasts to kind of start and talk about, not only talk about issues, but talk about things that are doing good in our community that doesn't really get talked about a lot, like
banter and like
just a bit of fun.
Humor, some things we just like talk about, we're like, and then we'll have messages and we'll be like, oh my God, I always think this. It's just like so.
Oh, I love that game you guys do, the Deadly, was it Deadly or Gammon? Deadly or Gammon game. That game is hilarious. Like,
yeah, we'd love to try to do different things, and like we recently did Blackfella Math. And
Blackfella Math.
Literally, and I was saying to Courtney, who's my best friend, on the way here, I was like, oh my God, I'm literally running on Blackfella time.
Blackfella time. That's another segment.
Exactly. And Courtney didn't know what it meant, but I was like, it's like a rite of passage.
But like as blackfellas, when you book other blackfellas, you plan in blackfella time. It's like Nyunga standard time. Like whatever the time is like whatever the party time is. It's 2 hours after that is when everyone rocks up. Like everyone loves to make an appearance, like a grand entrance.
I love it, yeah.
But yeah, so Courtney being your best friend is like your right hand man. Basically, she's so lovely and does everything. How did you guys kind of come to meet, become friends, and then actually start, being like, oh, we can work together type?
Yeah, Courtney is honestly, like, I don't even know what I would do without her. She's like my, when you just meet someone and you don't have to feel like you have to be a certain way with anyone. Like, Courtney and I have been friends for roughly like 4 years. She works for a global beauty brand, beauty organisation called L'Oreal, which a lot of people would know, and they have like more than 30 different beauty brands under them. And we met through Garnier specifically. So being a Garnier ambassador since I think 2020 or 2019 is sort of when I started. Courtney was actually like the person that looked after me as talent is what they call. And I don't know what it was. We just like clicked. We just like literally met and we're passionate about the brand. We're passionate about what, our relationship, what we want to do. And then I guess like we finally met when I moved to Melbourne properly, and spent some time together. And yeah, it was just like a click. And we thought like years, I don't know what it was, but we just like got on the same level of like brand partnerships, understanding what brands look for, understanding what talent, what's required as talent, like as I guess like influencer, like that's like some part of my job. But I think it was more about all the other core values that we believed in. Like Courtney is a huge advocate and a huge ally. Like, she's been to more rallies than I have because she's like, I show up for the First Nations people because I believe in everything. And I just felt like I didn't even have to explain myself or, I tell her things so that she can better understand.
But you guys can talk on like that natural level, like not being able to censor what you say and be able to, talk with each other. Well, Courtney, we got to get Courtney to some rallies on Nyunga time though. So you can't be rocking up on Wodjila time, okay? Get there after the rally ends, all right? And then stay for the fee. Stay for the fee. That's the only reason why some of us come for the fee. No, I'm lying.
Don't you reckon, like, I think, throughout, like, friendships and, like, you grow up in community and you have these, like, core values and you have, like, these community values and you believe in them. And then, you always kind of feel like you're always having to explain to your, like, Wodjila friends about, this is how we do things is different. And they understand, but they don't quite understand, and I think you meet people in life that just truly get it.
Yep.
And they just get it and you don't have to feel like you need to, like, put on, like, this filter or this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's like,
I feel like Courtney is just like one of those people. But there's so many Courtneys out there, but I feel like I'm very special to have my little Courtney.
Your Courtney. So for me, mine is Boston. So Eric, our videographer, he would know Boston very well. And I don't like he's come into like our community so freely. Like he goes, what did he say? He said to one of the girls at basketball, "Oh, you only like me because I'm lovely." And he's full Wodjila surfer. He's a full blood Wodjila. And
but when they say and they use our words, ours as we claim them, but they are like our.
And he just made it. He just made it himself. He goes, "You think I'm a Munyising?" And I'm like, "Boston, shut up." And I'm in tears. He's just the funniest bloke going. But that's it. They make we talk about closing the gap and stuff like that. A lot. I think that plays a huge part in where we're going as a culture as well. Like you said, everything we do is spoken. So when something like that is reciprocated in just everyday friendships and building relationships, it's like that's what it's about. That's like the power of our culture is being able to do that.
Like I was saying, that it's like this understanding, but I feel like in our groups and people who we surround around ourselves, there's some element of like cultural safety that we just like crave and that we need to like persevere and do things in life. And I think like the people that I don't know if you're the same, but people that I've sort of like selected or like come across, and if there's like this like feeling of, oh my God, you've got my back, you know, I don't have to, they just understand like every part of you. And you can say anything and they wouldn't judge. There's like this I feel like this dog, seriously, you're gonna get kicked out in a second. I feel like those are the people you hold on to, because you're like, well, I want my, like, you know, they always say you should be able to say you should be able to have like 5 people that you trust and with your whole life, or understand you. And I think like growing up in my younger years, I didn't always have like those 5 people. So I look and I'm like really, you know, really cautious about who I do have in my circle, but the people that I do have, honestly, like they would know everything about me pretty much.
Yeah. And on that, it's a big turning point when you have to recognize that, oh, maybe one person out of these 5 people aren't in it for my best interest, or something like that. Like that for myself was a huge turning point, was being able to realize, oh, maybe I don't have the best people around me right now. Maybe I have to like chop and change on you know what my standards are for who's really looking out for you know what you're trying to do, because not many people can really you know see your vision.
Yeah, well, they're the people that your 5 people, they're the ones that should be like, you know, telling you, pulling you up on things, but in a way that's like they've got your best interests at heart. And they're the ones also that like should be motivating you and inspiring you to do all these great things and have your back and believe in like some of your goals, or if they seem unrealistic or like a bit crazy, then just tell them that you're crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think like I love my friends and I love my family. Sometimes my friends definitely feel like more family than anything, because I guess being away off country in Melbourne, I don't have my family like so accessible, and like, you know, I can't just like chill in their space. So sometimes I look to my friends to give me that part, and you know, the cultural element to it is always probably the part that's missing, but it isn't the part that I do feel like is sometimes it's not what I need as well. Like I just need someone to like listen and like hear me out and
exactly,
and bounce off
and then just vent to, just get shit out,
just like unleash. Even about my family, like my family are crazy. I love them. Sorry, I mean
as young guys, they like to keep it interesting.
100%, yeah.
But so you know, we talked about a little bit about, you know, being off country and obviously moving to Melbourne, and then how was that feeling coming back? Like obviously you've been back in Perth for what, just a little bit of time now, like that feeling of coming back and getting back on country, like pretty much as soon as you get off the plane, it's like I'm home, like okay, I can kind of relax and it's just the best feeling ever.
I don't really feel like people understand how the joy, or like
it's like relief. It's like because I remember when I came back from the States, I got off the plane and luckily we got off and I was at the back of the plane, so we went down and walked along the tarmac, and I just kissed the ground like straight away. I was like, I don't care what's been on this ground, what tires there, I've missed it so much. The whole plane ride I was listening to Diddy, I'm Coming Home, like the whole way coming from bloody Gold Coast.
Because you're like, you just know that you're just going to feel like at peace, or like comfortable, like you just feel like rest.
Yep. And then you're here for a bit and it's like, oh, it's time to go, it's time to get out of Perth.
Well, last time I saw you, like actually the first time we met, we were at an event, and you know, me coming back to Perth for work doesn't always feel like rest. Like it always feels like I've got to come and I've got obligations and I've got responsibilities and I need to get them done. And I try to catch up with my family, but it doesn't really always work out that way. But this time, like around this time of year, like Christmas and New Year, I basically work my whole year to make this time happen. So like I dedicate, you know, like not going into like too extreme detail because I'll just bore you, but like I set aside like a budget and like I set aside the time. I would make sure that I basically like, you know, work hard in Melbourne to then be able to rest when I'm here and be present here. And I'm constantly pulling myself up in the first week because I'm always like in work mode.
That's huge, being present so you can enjoy it.
Yeah, we know like, and I think that people don't realise like, I think I get asked this question all the time as like, oh, why do you actually live in Melbourne? Because I don't enjoy the weather. I'm such a coastal girl being, you know,
you don't like the 4 seasons in one day? Like
no one likes that. Noongars don't like to be cold. Like, unless you're like down south and you're like you're good with it. But
no,
like,
we got little ankles. Our feet get cold easy.
We need the layers.
Yeah.
So I just like don't enjoy that part of Melbourne. But for me, I work and use Melbourne as like a hustle period and a hustle era in my life, which I'm still young. So, you know, I think my career has kind of gone, you know, to so many different levels and taken me into so many different places and opportunities and doors have opened. And I use that to come sort of back to a place that I feel comfortable and be like, oh, this is what I've done and I want to be really proud of that. And I think Melbourne just like puts me in that spot every time.
Yeah, you're just in that frame of mind of work, of working and focusing. Like there's no distraction.
It's like a sacrifice, and it sounds like it's not a negative thing. Like I think when people think of sacrifice, they think it's like
they go the extreme. Like
sacrifice my firstborn, but it's like a sacrifice of like being so connected to family and country, and putting yourself in a place that you're not so comfortable, but that actually makes you feel like work harder, I think. What's the saying where it's like you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's where you're most like, it's where your most like growth happens. And
you get to know yourself a lot better with being uncomfortable
because you're a little bit isolated. Like don't get me wrong, it has its moments where like my brother's just had like his first baby, my youngest brother, and that's like such an exciting time because my family history is like we don't like a lot of my mob have passed on, like died, and so like I'm trying to like not me personally, but our family are trying to like procreate because we're like we need more mob, like we need more family, because we need those young ones to grow up and like feel inspired, and I feel like it's sad, but I feel so it's like a bittersweet moment when another nephew or niece comes in because it's like, oh, this is so exciting, but it's like also reflects on like how many people do like life is just like so beautiful. Like we have new life, but then we also have to realize like our past life. So, like reminds us always in that basket. But being away from my family during this time is like it's hard. It's like, oh, I don't want to like not be present in this time because I don't know when the next time I'm going to come back is.
Right. Yeah. And it's like you guys, and it's I found it hard when like a lot of my family was really supportive of me being away.
Yeah, because then it's like, US,
right? I was there for about, or on and off for about 3 years. So I'd come back for maybe 2 months and then go back again. I'd come back for like 3 weeks and then have to go back.
Yeah.
And then like it was horrible because I remember I sat down with my grandfather probably like a couple of days before I flew out, and like he started crying like just randomly. And then I started crying just because he's crying, and then he's just like, oh, like I'm really happy for you, and I know that that's where you want to be, and I've just got to support you from that. And we had a talk about that only like a week ago, about that unconditional like love and support, because sometimes you just need to go and do what you want to do. You have these goals, and you're like, the only way I can do it is if I be in this type of mind frame or mindset, or if I be in this place and in this environment.
Yeah.
And, you know, some family get it, some family don't, and it's, you know, some people don't see it until after you've done it, and it's like, oh, well, that's why you did that.
I always think like, you know, the whole thing of like you're running so that they can walk, and then, you know, we're also on the shoulders of like so many other people that have like sacrificed so much before us. Like this is my little sacrifice of living away is that I can, you know, I guess earn enough money or like, separate enough time from my schedule to come back and be present and make memories. And I think memories are so powerful because like that's where you feel like joy, like, you know, and all those feelings. Like it feels like a big thing, like when you have to go away, but you know in your heart, like none of the values that you have are going to change, and like people either support you or they don't. But at the same time, like, you know that's going to, what you're doing is going to, like, help so many other people as well. Like, open so many different doors, even though it's people always, like, think that me being in Melbourne is, like, some sort of selfish thing. It's actually not. Like, I actually do it for my family so I can support them and help them and elevate them. Yeah,
it's opportunity as well. I mean, like, think of it like in like back in the day sort of thing. And when I say back in the day, I mean like pre-colonization. Our mob was always moving. Like we were and not just our mob, I mean like indigenous mob. It was a traveling culture. It's how we met and exchanged, you know, items. It's how we got to know our language and our country and stories a whole lot better. Like everyone was always moving. So what's the difference between like doing it now? It's just on a bigger scale, I guess.
Yeah.
Like
exactly. I feel like we may not know this, but we unconsciously run, or subconsciously run on a seasonal thing, like in our minds. Like First Nations people were so connected to like our agriculture and our heritage and our country that like different seasons also bring up different emotions and we process things. Like I think Christmas, people think that it's like such a materialistic kind of like, you know, like it doesn't have to be. Like I think Christmas, you know, like even the seasons of Noongar seasons, like we run on like these like Western societal seasonal thing where there's only 4, but we have 6 and we know that.
Yeah.
And when we look at the separate 6 seasons, you can understand, I guess, like, this is going like such a nerdy, but like, you know, where
you can be a nerd. That's okay. You can be a nerd. There's no discrimination.
I don't want to bore people, but like, I mean, I love the news like different seasons because I feel like it's a new transitional phase for someone in their life, and I think like we look at spring and people are like, oh yeah, spring. That's when the trees fall off the leaves, but actually like that's more of it's a new life thing where new birth and new creation are coming in. So like
exactly.
All the little baby birds and the mum birds become really protective. We always know that, like, and like I always just love the thought of like new cycles of life, and like you look at when you do like research on Noongar seasons and stuff, you see like, oh, this is the season of fertility. This is the season like in like December kind of going from Camberang to like Birak, when the manja tree starts, the orange flowers start blooming. That's releasing the spirits who have passed away throughout the year, like into the next life. And so that's why, you know, that's a very emotional time for us as well, because when I was told that growing up and was something that stuck with me. So when I see like the flowers start blooming, I start getting a little bit upset or even a little bit relieved, like, okay, it's, you know, time about moving on, and that's something, like you said, you know, we take into every season, not just 4 seasons but 6 as well. And I think we've kind of lost that connection, and that like I think a lot of younger mob have that disconnect, obviously because of colonization, but I think the stories are there and the knowledge is there that I think we need to inspire our young people to like go seek it and like ask questions. And I think, you know, when I was younger, like I didn't have mum and nan telling me this stuff. I had to go like seek, you know, other Noongar elders and you know, like, you know, walk up to them and be like, my mum's Sienna Blurton, do you know her? You know, and like did you know her? And then like just sit with them and ask questions. Like I remember just like racking Uncle Richard Wally's brain once. I was like, bruh, like tell me like, tell me all this stuff. Like I need to know.
So they're oldies, they're so knowledgeable, hey.
And like he's just, you know, I know his daughter Rakita, and I love that family, and I just learnt so much from them that I could sort of take that knowledge, and I still have like hold it, but you know, and I guess like when you go to Victoria, they have like different traditions and like different elements of their culture, and you learn about the mob over there, and so you kind of exchange like knowledge, and you're like, oh, that's like so different to us.
And
but,
it's so cool when you see something similar or
but
different.
We were bloody nomads.
Yeah,
we were literally walking about. Like, I mean, like my brother just like goes and walks, and I'm like, where's he going?
Yeah.
About.
He's just gonna walk about.
Yeah, literally. Like, people don't understand like what that is. Like, it's so funny.
No, that's awesome. That cultural exchange. So, and that's something I found. Getting when I got older was like, oh wow, like not many people grew up knowing their culture or even knowing the details of their culture like I have. And then I was like, oh well, I'm going to teach this. I'm going to make sure like more kids get to know just the little stuff at very first. Like, all right, do you guys know why Stolen Generation happened? Do you know that the apology was in your lifetime, was in 2007? Like,
not that long ago.
Yeah, that all this is happening now. Like when we talk about Stolen Gen, this is like our grandmothers and grandfathers. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But we've got that in our nature, and I feel like there's more organisations like Dylan Collard for like Kaya Cool does amazing language. Like he does a lot of dancing and stuff as well, but his language teachings and stuff like that is bloody amazing. Like I was sitting there, I thought I knew language, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I've got to write notes now. Like
I do like every time I leave someone who's done like an acknowledgement or like welcome over here, like, and I just like think, oh my God, I'm so proud that we have like still that connection to language. I know that like, there's it's been disrupted so much over the years, but I think like when I look over east in Sydney and Victoria, like there's a real like disconnect, and I know that obviously that's colonisation, but like I feel like in Perth, like in Noongar, like I feel like we still have a grasp on that, and I think we're so proud of it, and we're still like carrying it on. Like I think I don't know, I've not to like say that over East mob and like all them like don't have it, but I just think we're so much more like deeper and richer in it here, and I feel a bit biased, but I'm always like I just feel like they don't practice it as much as what we do, I think. Not to say that they don't,
and like we're just constantly sharing that, like like have you ever seen two oldies like argue over like language or something like that? It is the funniest
like
thing ever.
The translation of things, like it's like this.
Like no, like Kaya's not a word. The word is demaga, and then like all this stuff, and it is the funniest thing ever. It is so funny.
It's even like the word Noongar, like some people spell it so differently, and I just think like the word doesn't change itself. Like however you spell it, like spelling in English came from like their West, like I always think we need to have transcription and translation, but they're still like Western ways of working.
Yeah, it's like we're a spoken language. Exactly. Like it doesn't matter how it's spelled.
Yeah,
like.
spelled, as long as it's said the same and understanding. It's but I can immediately imagine when I'm like, in another like 40 years, I'll be still having the same arguments.
Still having the same argument. It'll just be us that will be arguing. Like,
no.
We'll be the ones like, no, Eric. But no, that's
someone be out here saying there's 8 seasons, we'd be like, no.
Yeah, there's 8 seasons. Well, back in my day, there was only 6. Before that, there was 4. No.
We're just, funny.
No, that's what it's about. It's all about learning, all about that cultural exchange. So I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit and just talk quickly about that, that transitioning bit between growing up. Obviously, I got to listen to your TED Talk, and a lot of that was about, that self-awareness and actually, believing in that image that you have of yourself and who you want to be.
Yeah.
How did you kind of find that? Because when I was, looking at that, obviously, with how upbringing is in the Noongar socio-economic, and seeing where you wanted to be in life and what you wanted to do, for your people, you obviously, like, this is just what I got from it, is you saw what you wanted to be and what you wanted to do, and then you was like, okay, I've got to get myself onto a platform where I can, fully deliver this message into people. How did you kind of go through that realization and then those first couple of steps?
Oh, golly gosh. I think even when I look back at my TED Talk, it was 20 19. So I was only like 23 years old. Now 29, which isn't that long. So in the
Happy birthday,
years,
by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Getting on to like 30 soon. But, you know, I think I even look back at, you know, I think maybe I was like, I was definitely 24 at that time. And even in the 5 years, a lot has changed. But I think that message throughout the TED Talk is still so, like, relevant and so, like, prominent in my life, where I feel like no matter what I put my heart and head into, I always do it with intentions, and, like, intentions to either to elevate myself, my family, per se, because I want my family to be in a position where I feel like we are all living with joy and happiness and healthy lives. Like, I think we didn't really have that growing up. So I've always just wanted my family to be together and reunited, because I think a lot of people wouldn't know this, and they probably haven't listened to my TED Talk, is that in the early stages of my life, I lost a lot of people. Like, I lost my mum and my nan within a month of one another. And we know what loss does to someone and in that grieving process. But in that same time, I moved away from my community and away from my brothers, and I was separated, which isn't something that is like, it can definitely have an impact on someone who's so young, and I was only 11. And so I don't know why, but when I was 11 at that time, I just made it a goal in my head, and I haven't outwardly sort of spoken much about this, but I made a goal in my head that I would get my family back together. No matter what it was and how I did it, I was just like determined to just get my family back together, and that it's not like I wanted to be like, oh yeah, we're all back together, kumbaya kind of stuff. It was like back together and making like happy memories. And, you know, no one feeling like isolated or left out. And, you know, I sacrifice a lot being in Melbourne, but I know that every year I get to celebrate what I've achieved with them, and, like, I guess, like, what I was determined to do. I mean, the steps to a TED Talk's always, like, something that I get PTSD over because
it was very, very well spoken. Like, I was watching it and I was like, oh, you know, when you're just like in the, like that sort of trance where you're actually listening and taking it in. It was very, very well spoken. So
it's crazy to think like the day before that TED Talk happened. So that was a Saturday morning, and I was the last one to come on to, because they thought that they were saving the best to last. But what they really thought was they were saving the messed up one to last, because I was just like, the day before I was so anxious. Like I have, you know, my history of depression and anxiety, and I'm very much like aware of those when that starts to happen, and I can pull myself out of it and understand like that self-awareness. But I hadn't had a panic attack for like quite a few years, and the day before that TED Talk I actually had like an extreme panic attack where it's like one of those nightmare movies where you basically, you know, when you're on stage and you just like, you freeze and you can't say and do anything, and everyone's
and this is going
100
miles an hour, and then that's going 100 miles an hour. And
exactly. And like normally I do really well with like being under pressure. I don't know where that came from. I think it's like a survival mentality where I can stay really calm in the chaos. But in that moment, the day before, I couldn't physically get words out. And it's so weird because I let it all out that day before, and the lady was like really fearful. She was like, oh my God, like, you're gonna be okay tomorrow. Like she'd listened to me, you know, on Zoom per se. And then the next morning I just like woke up and I was like, I'm gonna do this.
It's go time.
It's
go time.
I don't know how, why, what happened. I truly believe that like my mum and my nan were with me. They could see how much I was struggling maybe the day before, and they were like, all right, we got you. Like, and I did feel that kind of sense of like comfortableness where when I walked out on that stage I was just pretending like I was just talking to people that I knew. But the TED Talk's called like How Do You Introduce Yourself, and I think excuse me. I mean the TED Talk's called How Do You Introduce Yourself, and I think that's very appropriate for mob, especially Noongar mob, like, I feel like, you know, we're fucking cobras.
But just...
Hi, Sonny.
How you doing?
No, you're right. My dog was like, I know this boy.
And his arms, yeah. But yeah, it was like getting to know yourself and then being able to express that vision of yourself.
Well, yeah, like, I feel like when we say kaya, obviously, like, a lot here. Like, we say hello. And I feel like when you go to other places, they don't outwardly express, like, I don't know. I maybe, like, hear it, like, a couple of times. But, like, here we, like, say it a lot.
We say it a lot.
So I felt like introduction is really important to us. Like, because I think it sort of sets a presence of, like, I'm really proud of, like, who I am and, like, where I've come from. So I want you to know that I am as well. But, yeah.
And those sort of, like, feelings, like you said, the night before, you know, the TED Talk, is kind of like because you want to do so well you're not just representing yourself when you're talking about, you know, language and when you're talking about introducing yourself and why we introduce where we're from with everything that we do. You're kind of representing, like Noongar people when you're doing that, and Indigenous people of alike. So it's kind of a big deal, like not only to yourself but to everyone else when you talk.
Pride. I feel like pride is like something that we carry a lot. We're very proud of our culture, even regardless of our circumstance or like what's happened, you know, over the years and what's happened to our First Nations people. I think even regardless of, like, you know, last year and, you know, with The Voice, and I think that doesn't, like, defer us from being really proud of our culture. I think it probably gives us a little bit more of a fire in our belly to, like, actually persevere and kind of, like, despite any of that stuff. Like, we're like, you will not determine or define who we are as people. Like, we, you know, and I think, like, we have so much to be proud of.
Yeah. And that in itself just shows our resilience as a people. Truly. Because we had to have that little bit of a grievement moment after The Voice where it was like, all right, this is obviously something that we really wanted to happen, something that we thought, I honestly thought that would happen. Yeah. And then when it didn't, it was like, all right, let's, you know, take this in and actually feel this for a second, and then, all right, let's see where we go from here.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of how we develop as a people, because we're always moving forward. Yeah. So what's in it for you this year? So what's the goals? Obviously you go back to Melbourne pretty soon. What's happening with Not So PG? Is there any modelling stuff coming up? What's Matt doing?
Maddie and I are actually having, like, a bit of a rebrand with our podcast. We found that, like, we love when we first started that the podcast took this direction of, like, fun and being playful and friendly and kind of, like, you know, like, not being so serious. I think because in all our other roles that we do, we have to be, like, really serious. And
so just that, like, uncensored, no filter.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's still going to be that, but we're taking a new direction, and, like, you know, we want to, I guess, since The Voice stuff, we want to really, like, put First Nations people at the forefront. And we actually probably want to do that more intentional stuff where we want to elevate people's voices and actually show, like, why it's so important for our First Nations people to be, like, at the forefront and elevated, because I don't know why I feel like this. I don't know why the drive or the fire in my belly is from, but it's just like I'm just, like, so sick of feeling alienated in this country as a First Nations person. And I think I expressed that to Maddie, and Maddie was like, yeah. And we have this platform which we, you know, which we work so hard for, and we're like, well, we want to do the right thing by our mob and by our family and friends. So yeah, I think we're having a bit of a rebrand with that. So it's going to be, like, still fun and friendly, but it's just still a bit more serious about some stuff. But yeah, I guess for me,
still going to be playing Deadly or Gammon, or?
Black we'll come up with more, like, segments, hopefully more fun stuff as well, because, like, oh my God, because we unpacked a lot. Like, it nearly broke our friendship. Things that I thought were Deadly, he thought was Gammon, and I was like, nah, this ain't it. Like, I was like, no way. It's like he thinks salty plums are shit, and I was like, you're not. That's no. Salty plums.
I think they're shit.
I love them.
I think they're shit. Like,
See, I mean that.
I think they're shit.
Over.
I think they're shit.
Oh my god, that's so funny because the kids that I work with,
Not shit, but they're salty.
they're so yummy though. They're so addictive.
No wonder why they call salty plums, aren't it? But they're salty. But no, that's it. Is honestly constantly improving. And we also talked a little bit about your book, Big Love, which funny story, I went to pick up this morning. I called Dimmicks yesterday and I was like, hey, you've got it in stock? They're like, yeah, we've got it in stock. I'm looking right at it. I was like, great. I'm on my way to pick it up tomorrow morning. Went there this morning and they're like, we literally just sold it, like the last one an hour ago. And I was like...
I'm glad that they're still selling.
So,
I know, but I did say that I was going to send... That's that's blackfella time
Blackfella time. It's still in the post. Yes. It's still in... Blackfella time's worse than Oz Post. It's still there's no direct...
No, they are. I mean, I'm really proud of my little memoir of my 27 years actually, because I wrote that before I turned 28. I'm really proud of that. I think people... Not often, unless you're, some big, sports star, they think I feel like unless you have some major profile or something that you can't write your story, but I try to tell people that any story is worth writing. I think everyone has a story, and I think everyone is relatable to a sense, something that you might not think, someone else is experiencing, they've probably gone through it or they're, they probably will relate to some parts of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I mean, I was really surprised. Most of the people that wrote back to my story were not only mob, but stories young girls that related to Big Love. And I was like, this is amazing. If this can help someone or, understand that they've gone through similar experiences and they can kind of get over it, or they can persevere and they can, build a great life for themselves, and that's all I want. But I do love writing. I'm not always the one to always outwardly, openly and speak what I need to say, something in my head I will write to paper.
Yep.
So I think, next year I'll continue to keep writing, and
so Big Love Part 2. Bigger Love.
I keep calling it Big Lover.
Big Lover.
Big Love. I was ironic because Big Love is not what I thought my book would be called.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to all the things that I do have in my life are basically the core of it is love, but then I'm I'm not very big. Yeah. So I'm it's kind of ironic.
But there was a lot of aspects to it, like self-love as well, giving yourself self-love, and then also giving and receiving it.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know, redefining I guess what you want for your life and reclaiming it. It was about reclamation, as you probably have maybe seen over the last couple of years, sometimes people just write shit about you and they get the story wrong and they twist things and they manipulate things, and I always was this is not the life that I wanted to live, in a way that I live my life with true intention of being a good person and making sure that everyone's sort of looked after. So when people would write shit and say stuff, I'd get really upset about it, because I'd be you're painting a picture of me that's not true or accurate. So Big Love was actually a bit of a reclamation story. It was this is my story. If it's published and it's written, then I can basically put that in people's hands and be you can write whatever you want. You can do with that
information what you want.
Yeah, you can write about whatever you want about me, And
that's something Eric and I spoke about earlier this morning, was about that sort of, when you're having those sort of conflicts, or being able to take in criticism and understanding when it's coming from a place of wanting to improve, or from a malicious type place where you're all right, this person obviously, I'm going to let the problem sit with them and not make it my problem, but then being able to stand at a point where it's all right, how can I improve? And for example, the podcast, if someone comes in and says the lighting shit, I'm going to say why is the lighting shit? And then, if it is shit, I'm going to be you know what, that person's actually right. And then if it's wrong, I'm going to be shut up, Eric knows what he's doing. Yeah.
It's not taking anyone's what is it? Criticism for what it is, when it may not be that, I'm happy to, I'm very open to feedback. I seek advice quite a lot, actually, and I seek I I guess, like, partly a validation that I'm doing the right thing by most people, like, even by, like, you know, our community elders. Like, you know, if I have, like, an idea or something, like, I run it through a few people because I think, well, I don't want to upset anyone.
Yep.
But then at the same time, like, you know, it's not even, like, our mob in our community that are that concerned. It's, like, the crazy ass, I don't know if I can say ass, but it's, like, the crazy ass. It's, like, the crazy world of, like, the news tabloids and the publicity, and they always want to make you seem like some trauma case or someone that's, like, so, like desperate or, like, sad. And I'm like, I actually am not. Like, I'm actually, like, pretty, like, okay. I'm actually doing pretty good, like, you know, mental health.
And then hearing it, you're like, what, sorry?
Am I?
You're like, fuck, am I okay? Like, am I? Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
like, well, we read an article, and it was just, like, the poxiest article I've ever read in my life. Wasn't it? It was just, like, it made me seem to be, like, so done hard by, like, mystery boyfriend broke up, Brooke's, like, it was, like, this is going on a bit of a tangent, but it's, like, after months, Brooke boyfriend breaks up with her or something like that, and I was like, I didn't even have a boyfriend. Like, I was like, since when? Like, and they just
no one told me this.
Yeah, I was like, where is he at? But in even those, like, stupid tabloids and news articles, it always, like, reminds me that, like, people are in things for themselves, like, regardless of your situation and what you want to do. Like, as long as you stay on track and motivated to do what you want to do, and you know that that's, like, the best thing and the right thing, and that, you know, I feel like all the other white noise is just, you know, a part of it. And I've just learned, like, you got to do things regardless of what people think sometimes.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, truly.
Definitely. Well, best of luck to you for this year as well, because, you know, you've got a lot of things on your plate. Obviously, if you haven't seen Not So PG, please go and check that out. And also go get her book as well, Big Love. We talked about Big Lovely Part 2 coming out soon.
True.
Is it an audio book, or is it just a hard copy?
No, so I tried to make it accessible for mob as well. So like, if you don't read, which, you know, a lot of my siblings are like, I just can't sit there and, like, read a book. Like, I just can't. I'm like, if you want to listen to it, it's actually easier to do, and it's actually my voice, but if you get sick of my voice, that's fine as well. But yeah, that's just on Audible, I think. And it's on sale, actually. I'm pretty sure it's like $12.
Oh, we'll definitely go and get it.
Me trying to sell it, like, I'm like the worst at this.
No, well, thank you very much, Brooke, for coming. It's honestly such a pleasure to have you in and, you know, get you to tell your story, and also speak a little bit about not only the Indigenous issues, but give a strong black female's perspective on the type of stuff that we have to go through. So thank you very much for coming in and sharing that. I hope you enjoy your time back on Yunga Buja while you've got it.
I know, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you. Cheers. Big thank you to Jilla, purely Indigenous, 100% WA Indigenous owned, high quality Jilla pure water and coffee beans products, for sponsoring this episode and being able to supply the water. So Jilla, purely Indigenous. Thank you very much for watching. You know, obviously follow us on Instagram, Kaya_podcast, the Kaya podcast. We're also on TikTok, YouTube and Spotify. So make sure, go in there, have a look, like, share, all that sort of stuff. But also, even feel free to send us a message on who you want to see on this podcast, who you might think will be good, because we're always open. We've got a lot of episodes coming up over this Christmas, New Year's and going into 2024 period, so make sure that you stay tuned in for that. And thank you for listening. Cheers. Buddha one.